Hi, and welcome to the Take the Stage podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Alvarez, and I'm on a mission to help make diversity more of a reality for lower middle market and middle market investment firms. Take the Stage celebrates and amplifies diverse voices and serves as a platform for conversations that encompass a wide range of perspectives. You're going to hear candid conversations that touch on career paths, the not so linear kind, valuable insights, practical advice, and honest stories on navigating and succeeding on the buy side. Today on Take the Stage, we're going to talk to Maude Delice, an investor relations and fundraising professional. We're going to talk about Maude's career journey from marketing entrepreneur to investor relations leader, the critical role of investor relations in fund management success, the upcoming Raising Diversity and Alternatives Capital event, current trends in fundraising and investor relations, how strategic branding and communications are shaping the future of IR and fundraising success, and much more. I am delighted to welcome Maude Delice. Maude, please take the stage. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we will go from there.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited. Big fan of the podcast, and really happy to be one of your guests. So I guess I can start with saying I'm a Brooklyn, New York native, born and raised. I'm also a very proud recovering entrepreneur. I worked in marketing and branding and launched my own branding agency. And that's what led me to the asset management industry as an IR and fundraising professional, which is by far the most rewarding career that I've had and been able to kind of do over the, call it, 8 years that I've been in the industry. So super excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about, what I see as important and invaluable to having an investor relations program that's successful. What are some of the fundraising trends that, folks should be considering today? And then just, talking shop when it comes to just building out a career in IR, which is a question that I get all too often.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you and I have talked about before is how, the deal team, the investment team is the team that always gets the glory. And a lot of people don't necessarily know all the different facets that different roles that exist at the fund level.
Yeah.
And so this is a really good resource, I hope, to those people that might have an interest in the alternative investment space, but don't necessarily see a path on the deals or investment side, because you are a really great example of just having this very rich non-traditional career and have been able to parlay that into a successful career. So hopefully the intention with this particular episode is to really shine the light on this career, among all the other things that I know that you're working on.
Yeah.
Which allows me to seg, because I know that you mentioned that offline to me that you are involved in RDAC. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So I am part of one in, call it, 4 folks who are working on the Raising Diversity in Alternatives Capital event with SEO. For those of you who don't know, SEO is a really, really instrumental organization in placing and building diverse network across multiple professions, including the investment and legal verticals. And now they're focusing on building out, a kind of dedicated program for IR and fundraising folks, primarily diverse IR and fundraising folks. It was launched in 2021 by Davion Lewis, who is an SEO alum, and it just helps to fill this kind of gap in programming that is dedicated and focused only exclusively on investor relations and fundraising, which is exciting because it is a super critical time today for fundraising and IR, particularly because competition is so right? Like I think the last data point I saw was that in January of 2024, there was 14,000 new funds that came into market, all looking to raise, seeking to raise capital, and that number is 3.2 trillion in capital, I think, and only $1 was closed for every $2.40 targeted, which is, insane, and it is certainly a reflection of how challenging the market is today and how robust an IR program needs to be in order to be competitive in this kind of dynamic market. So that's what we're going to talk about at this event. We're also going to have some really amazing LPs in attendance. We hope that they will be able to speak amongst each other to kind of find the answers to some of the most pressing questions that they have. Primarily, how do we, engage lower middle market funds? When I talk about fundraising, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. Hopefully, we can get to it. But when I talk about some of the more successful fundraising or fundraises of this year, that capital is concentrated with the larger players, right? Which means that a lot of the lower middle market funds, a lot of the smaller emerging managers aren't as successful in fundraising, which leaves us a gap in the industry that is, unfortunate, especially for LPs who are looking to diversify their portfolio, who are looking to generate alpha, and that certainly can be done in the lower middle market space. So those are some of the things that we're going to be discussing. I'm very excited about it because I think it will give me an opportunity to point some of these GPs who will see my LinkedIn and message me and ask for some dedicated time to talk to me about, IR, to kind of like just give them this resource. We do have a dedicated LinkedIn page that they can go to, which I will be also helping to manage and develop content for. So it's really exciting, and I can talk about IR for more than I'd like to be honest. But it's an exciting time, and I'm super, super stoked to be one of the brand ambassadors for this event, especially as you mentioned, Alexis, as a diversity of thought hire.
That's awesome. This sounds like an amazing event. And I really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't really seen an event kind of this nature before. I mean, like you again, the deals guys hogging all the glory, or at least that's a lot of the, like a lot of the noise that you tend to hear when you're looking at events. So it sounds like this is something that is quite unique. Correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the larger conferences, there's certainly one event that is dedicated strictly to IR and fundraising professionals. And I'm kind of losing track of that name, but there is one major conference dedicated to IR professionals. But as far as, diversity IR hires or, fundraising professionals, also just in terms of having an LP focused kind of program as part of it, I haven't seen it yet, right? And I think most of the conferences will have like carve outs for IR and fundraising. They do a good job of including it as a workshop or as a seminar. But as far as really having just a dedicated event to it, there are not that many, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. This sounds like a really interesting event, and that is quite unique. Just based off of the very brief points that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Because I'm focused on the diversity piece. Tell me a little bit from your perspective. Why you think diversity in these sectors is critical now.
Yeah, I mean, so I think one of the things that's super interesting about being an IR today is how focused people are on the communications and branding aspect of IR. And that's very, very timely considering just the trends. So the first one is that U.S. private wealth market is expected to reach 58 trillion in AUM by the end of or was expected to reach, 58 trillion in AUM by the end of 2023. And nearly half of the global private wealth management market is estimated at $122 trillion, which is huge, right? Just a slight increase to 3% of that in the private market would be an additional $580 billion. That's a lot of capital that folks need to be aware of. That's a trend that is increasingly important for fundraising folks to be targeting. And one of the key aspects of being successful with private wealth is branding. That's huge. They are really sophisticated in the sense that they care about transparency, they care about communications, but more importantly, they are a new market that needs to be aware of your firm, and the best way to do that is through branding. So that's one trend that is increasingly visible and increasingly important for a lot of funds and firms, and particularly folks who are in my seat. The second thing is that the firms that are outraising others, not only are they strategically mapping out who their LPs are, so they're being really, really intentional about understanding their customer / client, the LP, right? And you need a dedicated person to do that, somebody who's not looking for deals, as you say, somebody who's not managing the fund and the firm on a day-to-day basis. You need somebody in the seat who understands LPs' expectations, who understands how LPs' expectations are evolving over time. And that's a success hit, right? That's a success rate of 2 to 3 times. These firms who have a dedicated person and a modernized IR program are outraising their peers. So these are things that are increasingly becoming more critical to the success of a firm and a fund. And branding and communications is certainly a huge part of that. And having somebody who understands how to do that and how to implement those practices strategically in order to both match and meet enterprise goals for the firm, but also understand how LPs, the expectations of LPs over time, and who your best LPs are, who you can attract, who has the capital, who has the interest in your kind of strategy. Those are key considerations that unfortunately, folks who are on the deal team can't pay attention to it, or founders, of firms and funds. And I'm talking about the smaller end of the market, obviously, but they need somebody in that seat who understands and who can do that full time.
Do you happen to know the number of firms, more or less, that have a dedicated, because not all firms have a dedicated IR or marketing, IR. I don't like marketing. I want to focus, or that's a separate question.
Yeah.
IR, do you see IR? So my first question: do you see IR and marketing kind of combined as one, or two separate? That's the first question.
Great question.
And then the second question is, do you have a rough estimate of, approximately how many firms actually have a dedicated person to this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I view investor relations as really the discipline of communications and relationship management. I think the marketing piece is certainly part of that process, only because you have to be able to, one, do research and be really analytical about what's happening in your market, right? And so that there is a marketing aspect of that. You should know what your LPs are looking to do or accomplish. You should know what market trends are happening in order to be able to better meet those, or change and iterate on your story so that you can meet those. So there is a piece of marketing, but it's certainly more communications and relationship management focused. And I think that over time, as you build out your IR program, part of what you want to understand, and part of like the key to like a successful IR program's foundation, is what is our store? How do we differentiate ourselves in the market? And how do we best position ourselves as the best firm or the best fund in order to execute on a specific strategy? And that's all you need in order to kind of help build out a successful IR program. As far as how many folks have a dedicated IR person, certainly the larger players all have a dedicated IR team and a robust marketing and communications team too. In some cases, they'll even silo product marketing or product management versus relationship management, right? So those are, in a smaller firm, you'll see those kind of two roles combined for IR. They're both doing the product management as well as the relationship management. Larger funds, they tend to silo those two. On the smaller end of the market, I think sometimes the founders will take on the responsibility of managing LP relationships in addition to doing their day-to-day job, which is either sourcing deals or operational back office responsibilities. And what you want to do as early as possible is make sure that you get somebody in that seat to help manage the relationship and build a process to manage the relationship, much like they have a process for their deals in sourcing, in diligence, in the list goes on. You do want somebody dedicated to the IRC to have a process in place so that you can both keep track of conversations, do additional outreach where necessary, communicate wins, and sometimes failures, right? That's also super, super important. So yeah, I think in the smaller end of the market, you're definitely going to see part of the deal team or the founders also take on the responsibility of managing LP relationships and IR.
Okay. Interesting. So let's pivot a little bit, and let's talk about maybe some of the interesting trends that are happening in the IR space today.
Yeah. So I mentioned two, right? Private wealth being one of them, and then also just the competition. I think just thinking about take the stage and what you do. Hiring is really interesting right now. There's certainly a trend towards hiring diversity of thought folks in this seat, and more specifically, folks who have experience in the sales process. And this could be anything from like work, and it has to be obviously be B2B, but this could be anything from working at a large tech tech company or managing sales for a large commercial company, anything that has to do with being in the seat and developing a pipeline to help sell your product and / your service. Why? Because leveraging technology and tools is super, super key in what I mentioned earlier, which is building a foundation and a process and having that process in place to better cater to LPs and to better institutionalize information. Feedback is so important. And if you don't have a feedback loop in place, you're dead in the water. It's really, really hard to keep up with a lot if you're having a lot of conversations. In some cases, I'll have like 30 conversations or 30 meetings a month with LPs. And so keeping track of all those conversations is key. Leveraging technology and tools in order to do that is super, super important. So that's key. Obviously, strong account planning is also going to be super, super important. And folks who have that kind of commercial experience in the sales process, I call it like a large tech company, they understand how to do that account planning with ease, right? They don't have to think about what strategies to put in place. They can leverage what they've done in that seat prior and bring that kind of knowledge and expertise to the asset management space, which is crazy because when you think about it, and I think I heard this stat is that the asset management industry, when it comes to the sales process, is 10 years behind the more commercial sales process of these large corporations. Right. So there's a huge opportunity to be competitive in the space if you hire the right person in that seat.
That's really interesting because when you think about it, your first your first idea when you're thinking of background is going to be someone that is coming from, like more of a traditional profile,
Yeah.
and coming from investment banking or coming already from the buy side somewhere in a position here. So it's really interesting that, you're advocating for, a very different non-traditional profile, and it's a profile that adds value in a completely different way, which I love.
100%. 100%. And listen, there's a bias at play because I am a diversity of thought hire, obviously, but a lot of people feel the same way in the industry. Bain and Company did a really interesting podcast where they talked about modernizing the IR function, and that's one of the things I'm totally pulling from their talking points, by the way. That's one of the things that they honed in on is diversity of thought hires are going to help you succeed because they can bring fresh perspective to your sales operations, merging strategic insight, operational prowess, and technological savvy, which is key, right? Like that's also super important. So, yeah, I'm all for hiring outside of your, your pool of or your pool of usual suspects. Absolutely.
So as a last piece, tell us where people can find out about the event and register.
Yeah, so you can certainly follow us on LinkedIn. The name of the LinkedIn page is Raising Diversity in Alternative Capital. I will also be posting about it, so you can find me and then make your way to that LinkedIn page. The event is October 22nd of this year and starts at 6:30 p.m. We have a really, really exciting program, 2 awesome headliner speakers that we'll announce shortly. But I think more importantly, this program and this event really focuses on how we as fundraising professionals can thrive by building personal relationships, by fostering thoughtful networking. It's a challenging journey, and that was certainly the case in 2023 and 2024, and hopefully 2025 will be the year where we thrive. But many in our community need the right connections, the guidance, and mentorship to create lasting, impactful career, and that's exactly where our DAC comes in.
Awesome. Sounds like an incredible lineup, a really great show, a really great event. So awesome to follow along. And if I'm in New York, I will definitely be sure to join, and I will let anyone else who has an interest in IR or this, just in these topics, I will definitely direct them to the page and hopefully to the event. So best of luck.
Thank
you. And maybe we'll just have to have you back for the post event dialogue and talk about some of the things that were shared at the event. So you're welcome anytime, Maude.
I love that. Thank you so much, Alexis. I hope to see you, and I hope to see everyone else listening and tuning in at the event on October 22nd.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to Take the Stage. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To hear past shows, please go to our website, career-rockstars.com. If you are a company or candidate who would like to work with Career Rockstars, reach out on LinkedIn or send an email to Alexis at career-rockstars.com. Thanks again, and until next time.